little bigger than I thought he was. And we got him upside down here. I try to hold him upside down. It just seems to calm and soothe the fish down.
Look at the cuts on him. He's kind of running with the
Well, that's actually probably from spawning or a lamprey, but this is a really nice fish. Probably, what, about 6 or 7 pounds. Want to hold him there for you, since he's your fish, and take a nice shot of him.
Listen as top guide Rob Heel gives us some tips on mending line.
One of the areas that I see a lot of anglers struggling with is line mending or line control after the cast. I think the biggest fault or mistake that a lot of guys make is immediately making an upstream mend. It's not always an upstream mend that you have to make. Line mending is designed to give you a better drift in the fly. In this situation right here in front of me, I have a very slow current from where I'm standing out to the seam that I'm fishing. If I make an upstream mend, what I'm actually doing is slowing the fly down because I'm dumping all this line in the slack water right here in front of me. In some cases, you may have to make a downstream mend or lead the fly to keep it drifting at the same rate of speed as the current. Remember, we want, when we're fishing with an indicator and a nymph or an egg like this, we want that drifting as naturally as possible. That cast to that seam, right now I don't have to do anything with my line, and it's drifting down that seam almost perfectly. If you pick out the bubbles around the indicator and your indicator is going at the same rate of speed as the bubbles, then you've got a pretty good drift. If it's going considerably faster or considerably slower than the bubbles, then you have to do something to the line. So remember that line mending is not automatically upstream. You have to affect the drift. If you have to lead the fly with a downstream mend, do so. And also recognize the situations where you don't have to do anything to the fly after the cast. If I leave that go right now, I've got a pretty good drift. There's a little downstream mend just to help the fly along.
Spawning occurs in the spring when the water temperature runs between 40 to 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Once spawning is over, the steelhead will then drop back into the pools to rest and feed. This is usually about the time that opening day arrives. They continue to drop back till they are finally back into the lake.
Here we go again.
It's very important to keep a tight line when fighting a steelhead. Any slack in the line will be met with disastrous results. You must also follow the fish wherever it chooses to run. Standing in one spot to fight a fish is a mistake and will also result in a lost fish.
On the butt of your rod, it's very important.
Let's talk a little bit about flies that we use for steelhead. The primary fly most steelheaders use or will have in their box are egg patterns. For instance, water will dictate what color of fly you're going to use. For instance, if the water's clear, gin clear, where there's nothing coloring it up at all, you might want to go with more natural colors like a white here, or yellow, cheese colored here. Those are the colors you go for. Now, once the water dirties up a bit, for instance, after a rain, you're going to want to use something a little more colorful. And that will be your chartreuse patterns here, and I got fluorescent orange spots in them here. They'll work about the best. Now here, that's basically what you got for your egg patterns. I also have what they call them in the States, crystal meth. You got to have pretty dirty water to use them. They sparkle a lot, and in clear water they'll spook the fish. So the crystal meth do work though in turbid water.
We now join Colin for some steelhead action in the early fall.
There he goes.
Complete concentration on your indicator is needed at all times. A strike should be applied at any movement. This movement can be anything from a slight slowing of the indicator to an aggressive and sudden submergence. Sometimes you just get a feeling, this is the time to strike. It may be a rock or it could be the best fish of your life.
That fish was lying exactly where you'd expect him to be. He's right on the edge of the current there, on the inside, this side, eh? Not the...
Yeah, they're fairly predictable in what they're doing out there. There's the odd occasion that fish aren't where you would think they should be, but most of the time they're right there.
Yeah, that's where I hooked mine. Just on the inside edge. I missed one 2 casts before. And you were right, very aggressive take. I mean, there was no doubt about it. Was nothing subtle about it.
Nice
Isn't that-
3-4 pounder.
It's late fall and we're back on the Saugeen River. We hope to fool some of these wary fall steelhead. Conditions are going to be tough though, due to a sudden drop in temperature and the impending snowstorm that has been forecasted. The steelhead in the Great Lakes are not purebreds. In fact, they're a genetic mix of strains from the West Coast. After years of interbreeding and adapting to the Great Lakes ecosystem, they have evolved into their own unique strain. In essence, they are jacked up rainbow trout on steroids, which is why anglers go to great lengths to catch these chrome beauties. Steelhead relate to seams in rivers. A seam is where 2 currents of differing speeds meet. The fish will lie on the slack water side of the seam.
A steelhead is basically a rainbow trout. But what we do is we identify the difference between the migratory species of rainbow trout, which live in the Great Lakes, then travel into the rivers. And I know this is early. They all spawn in the springtime. But these fish are actually coming in the fall, and that goes way back into genetics. I'm sure that's what it is. And there's also a springer on a fish. But the migratory rainbow trout is actually the steelhead, or what we identify as a steelhead. Rainbow trout, as you know, can be resident in a river as well. So the way that we can differentiate between the two, between these 2 different types of species of rainbow trout, is to identify one as a steelhead and the other is just a resident rainbow trout.
The storm has forced us off the water and back to our B&B for hot cider and a warm fireplace. We'll wait out the storm and try again later. For more information on this show and others in our series, visit our website at thenewflyfisher.com. From all of us here at The New Fly Fisher, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.